Welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. Rico Beard, Howard Griffith. Howard, how about we do this? Let's talk some football today.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I mean, a lot of this off the field stuff, or really on the field or in the tunnel stuff, it's enough of that. I understand everyone's, I think they're heading in the right direction. I know they are. Both institutions are heading in the right direction. You just got to
Yeah, they
figure it
are.
out.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point now where now you got to let, I guess, people smarter than you handle all the details.
No
Well, I
doubt.
mean you, I mean all of us
All
collectively.
of us.
Yeah, so this is where everybody sits in there, and I suppose that I would like to think that they could just kind of come up with something as is, but it'll probably be something sweeping that everybody would have to adhere to these new types of rules, which I think is ridiculous. But you know what? It only took one person in McDonald's to spill hot coffee on themselves for them to put the warning labels out there. So
There you go.
here's where we are. All right. Last week in the Big Ten, what was your biggest surprise? Because I had one, but I want to hear what you have to think first. You're the man, you know it all. You're sitting there at Big Ten Central. What was your biggest surprise?
To me, one of the things that really stood out to me was Penn State, the way they played against Ohio State. To me, Ohio State tried to play the game on the perimeter initially, and you just saw just how athletic and the speed that Penn State possesses on the defensive side. I thought the defense would be somewhere in between what we saw versus Michigan, where they were totally dominated, to if Ohio State was going to attempt to do that. And I think what you saw was Penn State's defensive line really step up to the challenge. But Ohio State, has some issues, I think, as far as being able to run the ball inside or really at the line of scrimmage right now. We've seen them 2 weeks in a row really struggle running the football. So Penn State really playing the way they did, and Ohio State struggling with the run game for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway, somebody at Iowa found out it is legal to score offensive touchdowns. And it was a thing of beauty. I'm sitting there like I'm watching the score, and I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on. Is Iowa scoring touchdowns? Spencer Petras knows it's legal for you to score. Yeah, watching them and them beating Northwestern, and maybe Northwestern was the thing that Iowa needed. All right, I'm having fun. In all seriousness,
So you're right. They are the thing that Iowa needed offensively.
unfortunately, man, every year you don't want to be that get right team, but every year there's normally a get right team that allows you to fix a lot of problems. You can make your mistakes and you can still beat that team. But speaking of which, now we all see this collision course coming with Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah.
The two things that really stood out to me is because when I look at those two teams, Howard, I separate them from the rest of the Big Ten and I start looking at them on the national landscape.
Yeah.
What do you need to hoist that trophy at the final game? I'm looking at Ohio State, and you hit upon it. Howard, I don't know if this is something that Ryan Day just needs to go ahead and say, maybe we should just be a passing team because they have running backs, but they just have problems running the ball. I don't know if that's due to a young offense. I mean, the offensive line. I don't know, but it's almost frustrating there where Ryan Day tries to run the ball, and it's like, man, you got these receivers, but it's like that old school. No, this is the Big Ten, and I got to run the ball. It's like it's not working for you. When it gets colder, yeah, you're gonna have to run the ball. But is this one of those years where you just throw your hands up and say, I got some of the best receivers in college football, and we're just gonna go to the old Big 12, the run and shoot type of offense and just try to chuck the ball around and score as many points as we can.
Man, I hear you. And when you look at the athleticism and the weapons that they have in the tight end room, and obviously at the wide receiver position, they're down one guy, but it would tell you that conventional wisdom, throw it around. But I think one of the things that got them into trouble last year, particularly versus Michigan, is just how physical the game ends up being played. And, I don't know exactly what it is. I have a feeling because you're pass protecting more from an offensive line standpoint, you're pass protecting more, so you don't have that hand in the ground moving forward with that road grader mentality. That when you start to play against some of these physical football teams, when you look at the way Georgia can play and what they have up front, when you look at Michigan and what they have up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage, it tells you that you got to be able to control the ball sometimes. You're not going to be able to throw it around. They're going to have some players on the other side that are going to make some plays for you. And I think one of the things that happens once you get into that 14 playoffs, look, it's about scoring 40-plus points a game. That's really what it comes down to. But to be able to do that, you need to be able to possess the ball. And when you throw it around, you end up second and long, third and long. That's not a great position to be in when you're talking about the elite programs that are out there.
Yeah.
And I believe Michigan and Ohio State are both in that category. But Michigan can run the ball when they want to. They may not have the athleticism at the wide receiver position that Ohio State has, but they've got a difference maker at quarterback, just like Ohio State has. But their quarterback at Michigan will pull that thing down and run with it, and he scares defenses.
Yeah, because that was the biggest. I mean, one of the biggest differences. Because Blake in the game against Michigan State, just talking about the game on the field.
Yeah.
Blake Corum did everything I expected him to do. And it was funny because his first touchdown, he was caught dead to rights. It was that 3rd and goal, and he got caught 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy went high. You can't go high on Blake Corum.
Yeah.
You can't go too low either because he'll step out of you. Man, you got to hit him in that sweet spot that a lot of people between the knees and the ankles and just wrap them up. And that's how you stop him. He fell forward all the time. But I thought it was JJ. And I think it was 2 times where it was 3rd down and he extended the play just by running the ball, picking up a ton of yardage, and it kind of broke the spirit of Michigan State. But for Ohio State's running game, it's almost like, Howard, if you could combine Michigan and Ohio State together, you got the best team in the nation, because here's the problem with Michigan. You can't kick 5 field goals.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I absolutely agree with you when it comes down to the field goal side of it. But let's remember, Ohio State's been forced to kick field goals as well. It may not have been in the red zone.
But see,
here's my thought, though.
Go ahead.
Here's my thought, though, on what's happening with Michigan. And I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't know. I just understand and listen to what coaches are saying from the front of the room. To me, you've got 3 people involved in Michigan's offense right now, right? You've got the 2 coordinators and Coach Harbaugh, where the play has to be called down. And when you get into those situations, when you get into the red zone and that field is condensed, to me, it all comes back to having a rhythm play caller, being able to know and have a feel for what's going on. And I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it seems to be very difficult to do if you've got 3 minds. And listen, I know Coach Harbaugh is letting his assistants and coordinators coordinate, but at the end of the day, on the offensive side, he's going to have the last say. He's going to say, I don't think we should go that way or not. But you've got 2 coordinators, and how that's really divvied out, we don't know, because they're not telling us for good reason, and that's fair. But I think when they start to get into the red zone and they get condensed, when you just mentioned it, when you got Blake Corum, you've got this offensive line, tight ends, and a quarterback that can extend plays, it's kind of tough to imagine why you can't get that done inside the red zone.
See, for me, when I look at Ohio State kicks field goals because Ryan Day's stubborn, because Ryan Day is trying to show, I have a running game too. But as the game progresses and it gets too tight, that's when he just says, you know what, CJ, just go do your thing and pass the ball around. Whereas Michigan, I've looked at all of these games, and, when they get down to the red zone, I thought Schoonemaker would maybe a bigger asset to them. I know Eric All's not there, but it's almost as if their play calling just becomes just so predictable. And I looked at that State game. They did something. They ran a little jet sweep shuttle pass, and it worked. And it's like, you're right. Maybe somebody has to come up and just become, how about I'll just be the goal line offensive coordinator and come up with some plays? Because when you go up against the Georgias and all of these other teams, you don't beat Georgia kicking field goals. You have to score touchdowns. I always say, if you kick more than 2 field goals against top teams, you're not going to win those games.
Yeah, well, you're talking about winning championships, and that's where we've elevated Michigan to that point now, and that's what it's about. And to me, they've got to find the answer. And listen, it's great that they have all of these red zone challenges, and I won't call them defeats, but challenges, and they've been forced to kick field goals. Now they at least have tape where they can go back and study and figure it out. But they have to get into, a rhythm down there and try to make some plays, because they listen. They got too many weapons. They've got players that once you get inside the red zone or the green zone, depending upon who you want to be, they've got the people that can get it done. Getting all back would be a huge asset for them, but they've got to be able to utilize what they have, and they've got a difference maker at quarterback. Without a doubt in my mind, he can make the throws, he can run it, and he should be a weapon down in the red zone to really be able to move that offense. But that's where they got to get to, and that's one of the issues that they have right now. And when you look around at college football, I mean, you look at the top teams, there's not one that is just flawless at all. I mean, Listen, Tennessee, everybody's talking about Tennessee, and I'm one of them as well. And Tennessee's going to score points, and they're playing with tempo, and they're spreading the field, and no one seems to have come up with a system to really slow them down. They'll be tested this week with them. I mean, defensively, they're terrible.
Howard, all I got to say is if Tennessee beats Georgia, save me a piece of cake, because I will be the last one to the party, because I have not bought into Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee is one of those teams that every year, like, it's almost like Texas, like, oh, they're back. No, they're not. And they're playing well. Hendon Hooker is playing, he's up there as one of the top people for the Heisman, but it's just something about Tennessee that causes me hesitation. So this is the game that I think you'll know a lot. I mean, the college football, rankings come out tonight.
Right.
Honestly, you probably should have Tennessee at number one. They're one of I didn't realize this till yesterday. Do you know there's 2 teams that have beaten, I think, 4 top 25 teams this year? Yeah. Tennessee's one. You know who the other one is?
Who is it?
Texas Christian University.
TCU.
The team that nobody talks about. I think they're going to be the fly in the ointment for anybody thinking, well, I can lose my conference championship game and still make it to the college football playoffs. I look at TCU and I look at Clemson, and I'm like, yeah, guys, probably not going to happen that way. So you may want to just go out there and win this thing. Howard, I do have a question for you.
Yep.
Because you play on both collegiate and pro level. I hear this a lot. I'm going to ask you, because you play. Do teams really hold back plays? Do they really save stuff? Or what you see is what you see? Because you always hear, oh, these teams, when they don't score a ton of plays, well, they're saving plays. And I'm thinking, well, they were down in this game. I would think that you would use the plays that would help you win. Do you actually save plays for the end of the season?
Well, I think this is how when they talk about saving plays, at least in my mind, right? There are certain defenses that plays work well against. And let's say you're going against Georgia, and I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not saying this is what they do, but say they're a predominant 3-4 team. Well, you may have a scheme that really, or offensive plays or run games that really would work better against a 4-3 scheme as opposed to the 3-4. So you may be holding something back. This is not going to be as effective this week. So it's not necessarily that they're holding them back, but maybe they're moving down on the list of plays that you believe that can be the most successful. You always hear quarterbacks and offensive coordinators talk about, listen, we've gone through the game plan. I asked my quarterback, give me your top 5 or top 6 pass plays. Give me your top 5 or 6 run plays or checks that you want to go to. And then the quarterback and the offensive coordinator and the head coach presumably will go through those, and they'll rank them. So there's sometimes that plays move down the rankings, and that happens all the time. But I think scheme-wise, I think sometimes it's kind of hard to hold back plays, particularly if you're doing them well. If you're running the counter, I can see teams that may hold off on the counter to the second half and not necessarily implement it in the first half of games. That happens sometimes.
That makes sense, but because you won't give the defense time to adjust at halftime. But it's just funny because I always hear, "Oh, you just wait. They got these plays set up for this game," and when the game comes around, I'm like, guys, I told you they run the same plays. I know.
So look at it this way. This is the way I would look. Let's take Michigan, for instance, right? They haven't been running read option as much. But I know, and everybody else knows, that thing is coming because of what they have, the athleticism that they have. they're not having to use those plays as much. Let's use Michigan again. Let's go back to last year when people were saying, well, shoot, they better figure out how to throw the ball. They're not throwing the football. Well, they didn't have to, but once they needed to, they showed the ability to go out and do it. So I don't necessarily say you're holding things back, more so than maybe things are moving down the priority list, up or down, depending upon your opponent and what they may be susceptible for from an offense and a defensive standpoint.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that, Howard. And now I want to jump to the team. You know, you represent. You're a proud alum. How good is Illinois? Is this a team that could potentially maybe upset Michigan or Ohio State or whoever they have to play in the Big Ten championship game?
Yeah, I think they have an opportunity, right? When you look at the rosters top to bottom, that would tell you no, but they don't. But they're playing really well. They're taking the football away. They're putting a great deal of pressure on the quarterbacks from a defensive line. They are moving around, very athletic. Coach Walters has them playing with a lot of confidence. I think what we're seeing from this Illinois team, and you mentioned adjustments a few minutes ago, they're so well coached that when they come to the sideline, they know what adjustments need to be made, and they're going out and implementing them. So what you'll see sometimes, particularly on first drives, no matter what the game is, you may see the offense have a great deal of success moving the ball down, and you're saying, "Wow, they got a field goal, they got a touchdown." Well, normally most of the time they're running plays that may not have been as high. I talked about that priority list in some other situations. But if you can, and this is where Illinois is having so much success, if you can stop your opponent's plays, their top plays, like their lead, whether it's a lead, whether it's a read option play, no matter what it is, whatever they decide is the top play from percentages that have been run coming into that game, Illinois feels like if they can stop those, then they can make the necessary adjustments if they're seeing plays that may not have shown up on game tape as high as a priority. So that's what you're really seeing what's happening on the defensive side. Offensively, Chase Brown is playing really well. This is an offensive line that's been together. They're playing at a high level, and DeVito is really making a lot of plays for him. And talk about a guy that was buried at this point at Syracuse. Now, all of a sudden,
he's a great game manager, and I know a lot of people think, "Oh, well, that's a negative." I'm like,
no,
man, Tom Brady won Super Bowls being a game manager. Like, if you don't turn the ball over, that's an asset. If I know that every series will end in a kick, even if it's a punt, we're not turning the ball over. You give your defense a chance to keep this thing going. Mm-hmm. I like what he's doing. He doesn't go out there to try to be the hero. But it's funny because you talk about the play calling, and I do want to go back to the Michigan State game on the Michigan State side because they're playing Illinois. We'll preview this a little bit later on in the week. But Howard, maybe this is me. I get super frustrated when I see it's 4th and inches, and you line up either in a shotgun or you turn around and hand the ball off 5 yards when all you needed was 6 inches. Am I just overthinking this? Because last Saturday was cool because I wasn't at the game. I actually got to sit at home and just be a fan and yell at the TV a whole lot. And that was one of the things where I'm yelling, Jay Johnson, the offensive coordinator at Michigan State, what the hell are you doing? Just line up because the Bush push is legal. Help me understand, why do coordinators and coaches, instead of just lining up for a regular quarterback sneak, you make the simple difficult? You were a running back. Hell, maybe you know something I don't.
I think this is what it comes down to. It ultimately comes down to the confidence you have in the 5 big guys that you might have up front. If you've got the confidence that no matter what the look is that they get, they're going to be able to pick it up and be able to get you that yardage you need, you're going to make those calls. You're going to make those plays, right? And I think that's really been one of the issues to me when with this Michigan State team. It hasn't been consistent up front. And it really wasn't all that consistent last year.
It wasn't.
Walker hid a lot of things.
Howard, and you are old enough to understand this reference. And if you not, and you watching this, go talk to your parents or use the Google. Kenneth Walker to me was a lot like Barry Sanders with the Lions.
Mm.
A lot of that was all Barry. A lot of that there was really nothing there. And you're seeing this still in the NFL. Walker is still doing the same type of thing
Yeah.
where he's taking a play that probably should have been a 2-yard run and taking it for 75 yards.
Yeah.
I'm with you because when you see the offensive line, you're thinking to yourself, guys, all summer long, you've been in the weight room. You mean to tell me you can't push them back 6 inches to get the first down? But yeah, you're right. Their offense to me is, the running plays are, and really is Peyton Thorne dropping back and playing a game of 500 with his wide receivers.
Yeah. It's just become difficult, right? And all of that stuff wears on an offense, right? Because if you're not able to run the ball, play action, you're not running it. Play action becomes, is not available to you, right? And
play action ends up becoming 2nd and 9.
And now all of a sudden your quarterback's under duress. This is a game about confidence, right? And as a player, if you've got confidence and you know where your checks are going to be, where you need to be, and you believe that you're going to be picked up. And again, I don't want people to say that Peyton doesn't have confidence in his offensive line. That's not what I'm saying. I am just saying that I know as a former player.
I was not saying that, but I may be saying that. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
exactly. But you know that if you can drop back and you feel confident of what's going to happen, and you know where that receiver is going to be, man, it's a thing of beauty because you watch. This is how Purdue plays the game. And I know we're jumping to them, but when Aiden is feeling good and he's in rhythm, man, he's hard to stop. He's gonna have high completion percentages that game, but he's dropping back or he's catches the ball, turns, and he's letting that thing go. And we haven't been able to see Peyton be able to do that this year all that often. So it's about that confidence. But getting back to your original, you got to be able to line up and believe that you can get the yardage you need. But right now, we saw it last year. We see it again this year. You're seeing backs having to jump cut, try to spin, get out of tackles,
right.
Would be tackles for loss, and that's tough on the run game if that's what you're waiting for, him to be able to make that first guy miss, and it's in your own backfield.
Yeah, and I'm gonna leave you with this. Oh, by the way, I did promise you and the people going back to yesterday. I'll say this. In this state, yeah, Michigan State just hits different. And if you're not from the state of Michigan, you really don't understand it. But yeah, it is your neighbors flying that flag. It's everything. It's your coworkers. It's couples. It's relationships. It's in-laws. And the amount of trash talking that goes on, I just wanted to fulfill that because I told people I would go in a little bit deeper. But I want to end this with this because I got to watch every year. I try to pick a game or two where I just sit back and there's no media duties. I can put on my team hoodie and just sit there and root. Howard, when's the last time you just were a fan? Wasn't with the BTN, wasn't with anybody. You were just Howard and you were watching Illinois or and you just got to sit there and just say and act like a fan and yell at the TV and do that type of stuff.
It's been a long time.
I think you got to do it once a year, man, because if not, in my opinion, this job gets stale because you become so homogenized that, you almost train yourself not to cheer because there's no cheering in the press box. And it's like, man, you got to cut loose, I think, one time to just let it all out, and then you can go back to just Howard. You got to try this, man.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I mentioned this yesterday with Nicole and Dave on our show yesterday, and I said I'm getting into an area, but it's been a long time. When we talk about Illinois, I have to be cautious that I'm not a homer for Illinois, but I'm calling it the way I see it, right?
Hey.
And now I'm getting back to. I said, well, I got to spend some time with Joshua because his team's been rolling, obviously at Ohio State, and Nicole Auerbach is a Michigan grad, so our teams have been rolling as well. But it's been a long time since Illinois has been in the midst of it. But I think
welcome
you're right.
To my world. Yeah, welcome to my world. Last year, I remember telling people I saw I was up at one of the practices during the summer and I saw Kenneth Walker running these drills. I
Mhm.
didn't know who he was. And I'm like, okay, he would do the drill, pick up 15 yards. Every other running back would do the drill, pick up like 2, 3 yards.
Mhm.
And I remember looking and I was just like, I think it was Darian Harris. And I was just like, either he's really good or your defense is really bad. But my goodness, they're running the same drills,
Uh-huh.
but they just can't tackle him. And I remember telling people, "Hey, Kenneth Walker," and I got called out. "Oh, you just being a homer. You're just saying that." And I'm like, "All right, you know what? I'm just gonna put it out there, and you guys are gonna see." So, welcome to the world where you have to do that delicate balance because
Yes.
you want to prop up your team, but now everybody's going to say, "Oh, you're just saying that because you
Right.
graduated from there." It's a fun feeling to have because I tell you, being on the other side right now, it's not fun at all.
Yeah, I've got to go back now and I've got to start to nitpick, right? It's funny because I watch Joshua do it every week. He's always nitpicking Ohio State. And it's funny because now the fans get on him
Mhm.
relentlessly when he has a take that's not favorable to them. But that's part of it, man. That's the fun of it. But I'm glad that it's gotten to this point. Illinois, they're playing really good football, have a chance to win the West, go to Indy and get a chance to play either. It looks like obviously Michigan, Ohio State, and that'll be a fun one, I guess. But
No, Howard, you know
we'll have
what?
to
Now,
see.
see, no, you being humble right now. I'm gonna tell you right here, right now. It's gonna hit differently. You've been going to Indy for all of these years,
Yeah,
and Indy has just been a game for the Big Ten champion, but your school has never been a part of it. I promise you, it's gonna hit different. When you look out there and you see all those Illinois helmets and you see all those Illinois fans, I'll simply say this, my friend. Take a second, soak it in.
yeah,
Just let it hit you. Don't be so TV Howard that you don't
uh-huh.
get a chance to be, Howard that used to hang out back on the block, Howard.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's it. Hey, that's good advice because I'm gonna tell you what, it's hard to get there, and we've talked about this in previous shows. I think the East West thing will be going away here pretty soon. At least we'll have it this way for another year, and we'll be wondering what it is in 2024. So these teams in the West having an opportunity to get there, they've got to be able to take advantage of it and take advantage of it right now.
I mean, think about it like this. It's difficult to get there. If
Yep.
Illinois makes it, and let's say they play Ohio State, you do realize that Illinois and Michigan have made it to the Big Ten championship the same amount of times.
Wow.
It's
Pretty,
that difficult. So yeah,
yeah.
what I'm saying, take a minute, man.
Take
Enjoy
it in.
this ride. Enjoy this ride because a lot of times we don't. And then the next thing you know, you're looking at that 10-year reunion video like, man, I wish I would have spent more time enjoying this thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly, right.
that was just my thing. Like, hey, when State went out to the Rose Bowl under Mark D'Antonio, I remember I was going out there and I was just
Mhm.
going as a fan. I wasn't going to go. And then my boss at the radio station was like, well, you're going anyway, and we're not going to stop you. I'm like, no, vacation time is already in. And he
Uh-huh.
was like, well, how about we get you to work a little bit and we'll get you a credential? I was like, I'm only doing this much work.
I'm gonna give you a little bit, but I'm gonna take it in.
Right. And I lived it up. I had on my MSU gear, and then I had to run into the bathroom and switch to look professional for the game. But I was at every tailgate. I had green and white head to toe. So I simply say that. Howard, appreciate it. Let's do this again on Thursday.
Yeah,
For
preview some
Howard,
games.
Rico, hey, thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone. Make sure you keep telling your friends, keep subscribing to this. We will be back on Thursday.